Last week, just one day after Congress recessed for the holiday season, the Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee released its investigative report after a 20-month probe into the ethical crisis at the Supreme Court, and its findings are damning. In addition to the previously reported undisclosed luxury trips taken by Justice Clarence Thomas, there were even more instances of him accepting private jet flights and yacht trips from his billionaire benefactor Harlan Crow. The report added, quote, "The number, value, and extravagance of the gifts accepted by Justice Thomas have no comparison in modern American history." Joining me now, senior writer at Slate, Mark Joseph Stern. Mark, happy holidays. I read this report. A little light reading for our viewers. I know you've read it. I urge everyone to go and read it because the table of contents alone is going to make you nauseous. But it's worthwhile to know this report criticizes even the late Justice Antonin Scalia, noting that he also accepted lavish gifts from billionaires, including 258 personal trips, dozens of which were never disclosed. Mark, did Scalia set a precedent for the current state of the court where Clarence Thomas says, "Hold my beer"?
Yeah, he absolutely did. I think it's clear that Justice Scalia was the role model for Clarence Thomas in this and so many other ways. Scalia created all of these loopholes around the federal statute that requires justices to disclose gifts, including lavish vacations and trips. And it was Scalia who also, in a lot of instances, just flouted the law, just flat out refused to comply with what Congress demanded, which is the bare minimum of ethical standards for a jurist who's, supposed to be serving in the public interest. I think Thomas took that and ran with it, and especially after Scalia died, just really went hog wild, accepting all of these gifts and refusing to let the public know what he was doing. It's an incredible violation of, again, an actual federal statute. It's a violation of the canon of ethics that the justices are supposed to follow. And what's truly galling is that he was given an opportunity to fix his mistake. He was given an opportunity to correct his former disclosure forms and say, okay, these are all the trips that I took and failed to disclose. And he still excluded lavish travel and private jets. So he knew what he was doing. Like in criminal law speak, Katie, he had the requisite mens rea. He had the guilty state of mind. He still chose to conceal this in violation of the law. And this is a man who is supposed to be judging everybody else, who holds criminal defendants and other litigants to the highest standard and shows them no mercy. But when it comes to his own behavior, he gets to make the rules and break them whenever he wants.
Oh, yeah, he's the king of rules for thee, but not for me. Another important point about this report, I spend a lot of time focusing on Ginny Thomas and Clarence Thomas on this show. The report criticized rightly Thomas's refusal to recuse himself in cases relating to the 2020 election, saying, quote, "Despite the interests of Ginny Thomas in every case concerning the 2020 election and the January 6th insurrection, Justice Thomas has inappropriately participated in all but one such case before the court." I mean, again, Mark, nothing we don't know about, but what's the significance of this actually being laid out in black and white in a Senate investigative report?
I think it's incredibly important in this moment, especially because we should take a step back and look at what's going on. Clarence Thomas has devoted his career to destroying campaign finance laws and granting billionaires a First Amendment right to purchase elections. Elon Musk, the richest man on the planet, took advantage of those decisions to essentially buy Trump the presidency, to bail him out, and to put Trump back in the White House. And because of Musk's work now, Ginny Thomas is going to have access to the Oval Office. Ginny Thomas will be having meetings with Donald Trump, pushing her preferred policies. And there is no real chance that the president will approve of any kind of accountability for Clarence Thomas's violations of the law. Come on. We know that Trump is not going to approve court reform. He's not going to impose a code of ethics or sign one if Congress happens to pass it. His attorney general is certainly not going to bring the criminal or civil penalties that could be on the table because of Clarence Thomas's lawbreaking here. And so it really seems like this coterie of billionaires and their benefactors all sort of entrenching and reinforcing each other's power and privilege. And if that isn't an oligarchy, Katie, I'm really not sure what is.
Mark Joseph Stern, not ending on the highest of notes, but always leaving informed and educated after you and I have a conversation. Happy New Year, my friend. I will see you very soon in 2025.
Thanks so
for
much.
Being here.